Onion Games is my favorite indie developer working today, and on my channel I've covered over 4 of their games. I just can't put them down. Well, after I finish my videos on them, I keep returning to the Onion collection over and over again. There's just something about the weirdness that just hits me on a deeper level, and if you were to ask me what qualities about those games that I love the most, well, I'd be hard-pressed just to point out one. Was it the odd caricature-esque style of pixel art? The bombastic, untypical characters with garbled voice samplings? Or perhaps the larger-than-life operatic singing proudly belting out nonsense words? There are many layers to unwrap to get to the core of this weird-tasting onion. I wanted to know more about this guy and the weird games he's been putting out in the world, as they've ended up becoming some of my all-time favorites. Well, it all gets started back in 1997, when Yoshiro Kimura was at a studio known as Love-de-lic, or Love-de-lic? Yeah, that's the one I'm gonna go with. And he developed a game called Moon Remix RPG Adventure, a game that was left in Japan for over 20 years and more recently localized. Well, this was my first time playing it, and I gotta say, it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in some time. Let's get into a little history lesson before I get into the review itself. Love-de-lic was comprised of ex-Konami and Squaresoft employees who wanted to go indie and form their own unique blend of video games. Some noteworthy alumni included founder Kenichi Nishi, who directed Moon, map designer Akira Ueda, who had previously designed maps for Super Mario RPG and was the lead map designer on Moon, pixel and character artist Kazuyuki Kurashima. He was responsible for the odd caricature-esque watercolor design of Moon's cast, and is currently the lead artist over at Onion Games. And last but certainly not least, the Onion Papa himself, Yoshiro Kimura.
I didn't want to say I am crazy, but recently I noticed I'm 100% ridiculous.
He was brought into Love-de-lic mid-development on Moon as a designer slash scenario writer slash clay puppeteer slash weird ideas guy. God bless this man and his board game starring actual potatoes. Kimura described the team dynamic at Love-de-lic as a really odd place to work. It was like a band playing an ad-lib session with ideas flowing freely from every direction. There was no band leader. We each respected one another and we could express ourselves individually. Moon was well ahead of its time, being released on the PlayStation 1 on October 18th, 1997. Originally, the game was going to be localized in the United States, and it had been halfway translated and even demonstrated at a little booth at E3. But it was canceled for unknown reasons, and as a consequence, Moon was a Japanese-only game left over there for over 20 years, with many fan translation projects starting and stopping along the way. It seemed like Moon was going to be stuck there forever. That was until Toby Fox, creator of a little underground game known as Undertale, got involved.
I'm a dog!
Well, all right, so...
In several interviews, Toby Fox has cited Moon as one of the inspirations for his game, but had never actually played it due to the language barrier. Toby had read a synopsis of Moon and was so in love with the concept, and had hoped that one day it would be localized. Throughout their respective careers in game development, Toby and Yoshiro Kimura had developed a friendship. Toby had talked to Kimura about the potential of bringing Moon back in some way, and encouraged him to give it a try. Kimura had not even considered the possibility until their conversation. He thought the task was impossible. Coincidentally, around the same time, a producer at Kadokawa Games reached out to Onion Games to see if they were interested in possibly resurrecting the game on modern hardware. So Kimura thought, this is my only shot at this, and he reached out to his former teammates for permission to bring it back. And he got back unanimous approval. Everyone from Love-de-lic wanted to see Moon return. After scrambling through his neat nest and unearthing old artwork and the hard drive containing Moon's code, all the stars finally aligned to bring Moon back from the dead. Moon Remix RPG Adventure was released for the entire world to play on the Nintendo Switch on August 27th of 2020. Let's get into this wild adventure. So what is Moon Remix RPG Adventure? Well, it's kind of a meta game that takes place inside of a video game, which satirizes other video games and commentates on the nature of games and their impact on the IRL game. We kick things off as a child playing Moon on his game station. The game is presented in a 16-bit sprite style, think Final Fantasy IV, where you play as a silent blue knight who's given a quest by the king to go slay a nefarious dragon that lives on the moon. This segment throws nearly every JRPG trope your way, as you silently listen to the townfolk but never speak with them. You raid their homes of valuable equipment and give nothing back in return. And there are a few battles where the knight automatically cuts his way through mobs and mobs of monsters. Occasionally, the boy will create a save file, and then the story will jump ahead into a new chapter of the game. This all culminates with the over-leveled knight battling the dragon on the moon until the boy's mom tells him to shut off the game and sends his ass to bed.
Stop playing that game and go to bed.
On his way, his CRT switches on suddenly, and the Midnight Channel pulls him into a static void. The boy then falls into the world of Moon, just as the Blue Knight stomps his way past the villagers into the castle. The boy is a ghost in the machine, and he cannot communicate with any of the NPCs of the game. As he wanders around town, he notices the knight obnoxiously barging his way through people and attempting to kill a stray dog. The boy stumbles upon a small home just outside of town that's occupied by a blind old woman, Granby, and her dog, Tao. Granby mistakes the ghostly boy for her deceased grandson. Now, before any of these details are worked out, the boy falls asleep on the bed, and in his dreams he's greeted by the Queen of the Moon. Here he's told that only those with the biggest hearts can survive in the moon world, and all your actions therein are powered by love. Upon waking up, Granby dresses the boy in the garbs of her deceased grandson and hands him a cookie, then sends him on a quest to go get some bread from the bakery. Now that the boy is semi-visible, you can now converse with the delightfully weird citizens of Moon.
Do me one thing. Police without your crew and being equipment, my Chris comfortable?
Upon returning to Granby with the bread, the boy witnesses the Blue Knight killing a slime in the most brutal fashion. He's told by a spiritual visitor, Dolittle, that the knight is going around slaughtering innocent animals for experience points, and that their souls are then left to wander the land for eternity, until they've been reunited with their mortal shells. It should be apparent to the player what's going on right now in the story. We're essentially retracing all the steps of the Blue Knight from the game we had just played on the CRT. That's known as Fake Moon. Now that we're in quote-unquote real Moon, we're from the perspective of the boy watching the knight's journey unfold. And from all of his actions, he doesn't come off as heroic. In fact, he's a bit of an asshole. The main objective is to get to the dragon's castle located on the moon by gathering a lot of love, which is earned through cleaning up the mess made in the wake of the knight's journey. But the rest of the story isn't as coherent. This is an experience, not something that could just be summed up succinctly in a synopsis, as even the Wikipedia page only talks about the locations that the boy can visit rather than any specific story details. Oh boy, that's really gonna mess with somebody out there who's writing a video essay on Moon who hadn't played the game beforehand. Pro tip, if you want to cover your tracks, just make sure you're speaking empty platitudes about the nature of video games, and as long as you
doing it with a British accent, most people on YouTube won't be able to tell.
Moon is a game that made me feel ways about things that I didn't feel before playing game. The gentle hands of Yoshiro Kimura have shaped my life like bits of clay on the celestial round body of Moon's aforementioned titular. I never considered before this moment that I wasn't playing the game, but on the contrary, game was playing me, the player.
The core of the game is centered around a stamina system imposed upon the player known as the action limit, which is represented by these hearts or this little compass thing in the top left corner that's constantly chipping away. Think of it like a timer that is ticking down until the boy passes out and it's game over. You can recharge a little bit of the action gauge by eating some food, or you can fully recharge it by going back home to bed. When the kid goes to sleep, he'll dive into these surreal dreamscapes comprised of low-quality JPEGs and a disembodied interplanetary head that absorbs the love that he's collected on his journey. This abomination is the Moon Queen, and she will bestow the boy with a new love level and title depending on how much love you've collected. And the titles here bear no significance on the gameplay, they're just for fun. Leveling up raises your action limit to allow you to explore the world a little bit longer each time. It's also the fun part. So how do you go about earning more love? Well, the fastest way is by catching monsters' souls and then placing them back into their claymation shells. There's a cute little monster dex that pops up whenever you find a corpse, and it gives you background on the animal and a hint about how to capture its soul. Sometimes the soul will only come out during a certain time of day, or maybe you'll have to trick the soul in order to catch it. Every soul you catch will earn you a bit of money, love, and then it will restore the monster to life, so then a UFO catcher can fly their ass back to the moon for safekeeping. Hell yeah. The second way to earn love is through solving the interpersonal problems of the citizens of Moon. A large part of the game is learning the daily routines of the NPCs and deciphering the contextual clues contained in their bizarre dialogue, which act as keys to winning their hearts. The best way I can describe the characters in the game is that they're temperamental and oftentimes creepy. Those are my favorite types of characters. By the way, every single character in this game is voiced, which was extremely uncommon for a game released in 1997. They all speak in this strung-together series of voice samples, which Kimura dubbed as Hinteko, meaning weird speak. Like the animals, sometimes a character will only be around for a certain time of day, or on a particular day of the week, and considering that there are 7 unique days of the week represented by this graphic here, you're gonna need to know them if you're aiming for 100% completion. When it comes to the topic of immersion in video games, I often find myself being more personally invested in the games that feature NPC schedules. This is primarily why I'm so in love with Swery65's Deadly Premonition. Half of the fun is learning about the rituals of the weird citizens of Greenvale, and then discovering the little details and quirks about their character, which add an unexpected layer of depth to an otherwise bargain bin horror, but I digress.
George, which do you prefer, mustard or hot sauce?
You didn't come all the way to my house just to ask me that.
Moon is more in line with an adventure game than it is with a typical RPG, hence the remix qualifier, I guess. Overall, it's sort of a cryptic adventure in the vein of Myst, where nothing is blatantly spelled out for the player, and it expects a degree of critical thinking if you want to make it through. Fundamentally, it's meant to be a slower paced game. For instance, there's no button to run here, so you just leisurely stroll your way through an interconnected series of screens, one tiny step at a time. But fret not, you'll eventually unlock this semi-fast travel system via this talking plant that completely engorges the boy and shits him out in various places across the world. You can purchase albums for your mini-disc player at this record shop located in this cave. The acoustics here are fantastic. What's weird is you don't get to preview any of this music before you buy it. Instead, you have to read these brief reviews of the music, which give you somewhat of an idea of what to expect. Also, playing the music will sometimes have an effect on the NPCs around you, and it can be used as a key to catching souls. Keep in mind, if you are going for 100% completion, there's no additional endings or other unlockables to get from it outside of the internal satisfaction that you get from having met all the cool characters within the game. That, and I guess you get some more claymation monsters that appear on the moon at the end, but that's it. Even using a guide, this is a very difficult game to 100%. I think a lot of people will just give up after they reach the fishing tournament and realize the small amount of time you have to catch all the fish to get the hearts. Some of the side quests are insanely difficult, like the Genghis Khan arcade machine, where you have to guide a ship into a planet with extremely irresponsive controls. By the way, Onion's Mon Amour was based entirely around this minigame, but with much more forgiving controls. The core enjoyment you'll get out of Moon are all the little events that you encounter throughout the game, and I feel like I would be robbing you of those if I just sat here explaining all the cool things that happen in the game verbatim. I hate that, but I will give you a little taste by spoiling one tiny bit of the game, just so you have an idea of what you can expect. My favorite moment was getting to know the baker. He's a bit of a depressed alcoholic, always moping around the bar and insecure about the quality of his bread. He also seems to be guarding a secret in the back of his bakery, and he's quick to shoo the boy away.
Still your most endearing property of the Greek sentiment.
Well, if you visit him at night, you'll find out exactly what he's hiding. Turns out that the baker is some sort of sentient bread man who has bread for a head, which ejects from his body at night, and then he grows another head in its place, and then he takes the old head and sells it in his bakery, which people eat. One of my favorite details included in all this affair is when Wanda, the bar owner, she mentions how all of the baker's bread tastes a bit like alcohol. There are plenty more bizarre experiences like this for you to find in Moon, but I don't want to spoil any more. Moon is a game for patient people who are willing to overlook some of the quirks and clunkiness of the presentation in favor of some good laughs and charming moments. It's a stop and smell the weird roses kind of experience. Yoshiro Kimura considers Moon to belong to a Japanese subgenre of games known as kusoge, or shit game. Not because the game was unplayable or bad, but he found some of the aspects of it to be dated or hard for newcomers to tolerate in the modern day. Keep in mind, Kimura is also a humorist with a focus on self-deprecation and defecation. See his semi-autobiographical work Dandy Dungeon if you want to understand what I mean by that. My thing is, I want to make RPGs, but I don't want to make sequels. Moon's story is finished. I, nor anyone, should write a story after its end. I don't want to think about money. Of course, if I announced Moon 2, people would buy it, but I hate this philosophy. Fuck off. Although there is no direct sequel to Moon, Kimura does consider Chulip to be the closest thing in spirit. Moon is about what happens when you stay inside playing video games, and at the end, the boy stops playing and goes outside. Chulip was sort of based around the theme of, okay, you're outside, now what? The theme of spreading love all around is still very present in Chulip, only taken to a greater extreme. Despite being a niche micro-budget game trapped in Japan for over 20 years, Moon went on to influence many cool and quirky games, and I never realized how many until now. The heart of Moon lives on in the make-love, not combat nature of Undertale. The puzzle-based animal catching system was lifted wholesale from Moon, clay font and all, in the cult indie game Pets Cop. When I first played Moon, the whole experience felt oddly familiar, and that's strange considering how unique Moon is in terms of style and gameplay. But I kept getting deja vu. It's like, have I played this before? No, that's impossible. This game was in Japan for over 20 years, hadn't been translated, but I'm going around helping people, and I'm gathering love. Oh man, this is Chibi Robo, one of my favorite games of all time.
Is there a connection to be made here? Oh, yeah. There was.
The framework of Chibi Robo mirrors that of Moon by having Chibi perform various tasks which range from cleaning up a filthy home to solving the problems of a family in crisis in order to earn money and happiness points, which are represented by these winged hearts. The happiness points serve a similar purpose as they did in Moon. They are exchanged in order to increase the capacity of Chibi's internal battery, which affords the little guy more energy to explore the Sanderson home.
Well, it turns out that both Moon and Chibi Robo shared the same director, Kenichi Nishi. Now it's all starting to make sense.
Hey, wait a second, I recognize that dog. It's Tao from Moon. Well, apparently, Tao was based off of Nishi's own dog, Tao. Nishi would go on to include Tao as a cameo in most of his games post-Moon. From the Chibi Robo connection, I looked into the other connections to Love-de-lic and was shocked to see how many of my favorite games were developed by former team members. Chances are you've probably played one of their games and never knew it. Moon's map designer, Akira Ueda, went on to direct two very special games at Suda51's Grasshopper manufacture. Akira was the director on the cult horror comedy Michigan, Report from Hell, and later he would go on to design his own spiritual successor to Moon, known as Contact, where he would serve as the director, lead artist, and composer. And if you want to know more, check out my 2 videos on Akira's work.
The Zaka TV Staff Yearbook. Oh, look at this picture of you! You look weird. And this girl!
I also discovered the lead artist on Moon, Kazuyuki Kurashima, designed Gino the wooden puppet from Super Mario RPG, who also bears a resemblance to the wooden puppet in Moon. Kurashima provided his talents to the amazingly bizarre Tingle games on the Nintendo DS, and he's currently working as the lead pixel artist at Onion Games. His art is a key ingredient in making these games so memorable. It's gotta be a disheartening position for Kimura to be in as a creative influencer, knowing that he had made multiple games that inspired others out there, who then went on to get fame and fortune, whilst he toils away eating cashews on YouTube in obscurity for years, uncertain if he'll have enough money to fund his next project.
On a more serious note, I wanted to use my position as a video game content curator on the internet to say something important. There's been something on my mind for quite some time. I struggle with communication. I often find myself struggling to break through the haze of chicken nuggies and model trains to convince people out there to try something outside of their comfort zones. Act 1. A lot of people say they love weird and quirky games and they like to laugh at memes, but when it comes time to support those very games, they're often nowhere to be found. So, let me put it into terms I think you'll understand. If you enjoyed Furry Friendship Simulator with all the quirky characters and meme dialogue, with sometimes darker undercurrents to hook you in and create speculative threads all over Reddit, then try Moon. It's the original version of that, and believe you me, if you want to see more games like this out in the world, then it's time to pay the papa. Buy Onion Games. Anything with this logo, that's a seal of fucking quality. I've been Hikiko, and I'll see you all next time. Hey Yosh, thanks for watching this video. I'm sorry about that cashew comment. Just an observation I made. Love you.